the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast, presented by Fantasy Data. Here's your hosts, Billy Muzio and Bradley Stalder.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the NFL Fantasy Podcast. As usual, Billy here with Bradley, and tonight we are joined by special guest Nelson Sousa of FTN. Nelson has over $1 million in career earnings in fantasy football. 2009, he finished second overall in the WCOFF tournament, Wyckoff tournament, $60,000 in winnings. 2011, NFC co-champion of the Diamond League with $60,000 in winnings. 2013, NFFC co-champion, the Ultimate League with $30,000 in winnings. 2014 and 2017 NFFC co-champion of the Platinum League, $260,000 in winnings. 2016 FFPC co-champion of the main event. Was that with Hubbard?
That was with Dave. Yep.
Dave. $250,000 in winnings and too many other league winnings to count. Nelson, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on, my friend. I enjoy doing our draft this offseason that we did with Dave. I cannot wait to get this show kicked off. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Very good.
So, I know we talked about it off air, but I know you're probably as relieved as I am. Waivers are finally over for our high-stakes leagues. But why don't you tell the listeners how many leagues you're in and what that process entails for you?
Yeah, so this year I'm in about 150 leagues, and my process, I was just talking about it, was I have to start Fab and going through and putting my bid groups together and analyzing each league and each team by 1 o'clock on Tuesday in order for me to finish in time before the 10 o'clock deadline on Wednesday night. So it's a full-time job, and I am relieved that it is over and done with, but I have a little bit of anxiety right now with all these COVID cases and all these injuries, and I can't touch my teams.
Yeah, I remember we were debating because in FFC and FFWC, you have team kicker, which is, beautiful. But in FFPC, we have individual kickers. And I remember us bouncing the idea off each other. Should we just risk it and go into the shootouts with one kicker, or do we, clog up another spot on our bench and take another kicker here with us through the final rounds? And ultimately, we decided to gamble. But I'm a little nervous right now after seeing, 72 cases in the last 48 hours with COVID. Luckily, knock on wood, not our kicker, right? And so we'll see how it breaks down. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm nervous.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Bradley, good news for Bradley tonight as well. Before we kick the pod off, I want to get him a little shout out. Bradley, do your little dance here. Bradley finished second in the Fantasy Pros expert ranking contest this week, number 2 overall. So congrats, hats off to Bradley.
Yeah, number 1 in quarterbacks, number 3 in tight ends that anchored it and didn't completely tank wide receivers or running back. So
that's kind of been the formula for success, right? If you're number 1 in one category, top 10 another, you're usually in the top 10 overall. Wide receiver, running back, of course, are weighted heavier because you're ranking 50 running backs or 50 wide receivers, 40 running backs. And then the other two, have just been kind of a hodgepodge of randomness throughout the season. It's kind of hard to be hammering down even the smaller ranking systems with the tight ends and the quarterbacks just because it's been all over the place. But hats off to you. Number 2 finish is outstanding. Well, we had a few questions. I want to hop in here. We have waivers over for FFPC and for high stakes. So questions here, burning questions for week 15. James Conner appeared to be injured on the second to last play of the game. They said he's going to be undergoing an MRI here today, tomorrow. If James Conner is out, Nelson, do the Cardinals go back to Edmonds? Is Edmonds healthy enough? If not, who do you think we see more of, James Ward or Eno Benjamin?
I think Connor looked like he was more banged up than actually injured. So I think he'll be okay. But if something happened and he was, happened to miss a game, I'd probably say that Eno Benjamin would be the guy that they would gravitate to. And then Edmonds seemed like he's pretty close to coming back. They didn't activate him before the Monday night game last night, but I would think that he should be good to go this week.
Yeah, I'd probably roll with Eno as well. You mentioned Edmonds was close. He was one of the players I had heard was gonna play, and then heard later, wasn't. So hopefully, they'll get him back. He's just another weapon for a Cardinals team that has really struggled at home, but has struggled as of late. So hopefully they can get him back and get on the right track until they face, of course, my Packers, and then they can lose then. But
So I always like to take a look at kind of best and worst case scenario anytime we have an MRI involved with a player. And we're hoping best case scenario, James Conner is fine. Maybe he's just hurt and he's not, like you said, injured. He's back out there Sunday. But worst case scenario, if he does miss time, let's just say, worst case scenario, he heads to IR. Do you think the Cardinals would be in contention to try to sign a running back as they go into playoffs?
I don't think so. I think they're probably pretty content with the guys that they have there.
Yeah,
I mean, who you
Edmonds coming back, I guess. Yeah,
with Edmonds coming back. I mean, who are you bringing in that is really is going to learn the offense and is better than Eno Benjamin or Ward?
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore,
we might as well just pass AP around. He's already been
I was going to say, once the Seahawks release AP, might as well bring Peterson in.
Yeah, I mean.
Speaking of the Seahawks,
yeah.
Rashaad Penny finally had the Rashaad Penny game I thought was going to happen when he was drafted as a rookie. He looks to be healthy. It appears that Pete Carroll is committing. That was my only concern, is Pete Carroll actually going to be smart enough to commit to him this game? And it looks like they did. So is it Rashaad Penny time moving forward?
I think so, because this is a lost season for the Seahawks. I think they need to see what they have in Penny, whether they want to bring him back. Are they going to go ahead and bring in maybe just start fresh at running back, because Carson seems like, he's productive when he's available, but that's the problem here in the NFL is when you have players that are not available, coaches tend to sour on them pretty quickly. So why not, end the season, figure out what you got in Penny? Well, Alex Collins is who he is. Peterson, what are you doing with these guys? You might as well just run Penny out there.
Yeah, he played really well. This was the breakout game Billy had been waiting for. Everyone had been waiting for. Former first round pick. Had been struggling with injuries, but anyone can play well against Houston. So will he be given the rock, moving forward? I think double digit carries still, but it's the Rams and the Bears who played really well against the run over the last little bit. And so I think tempering expectations, you can't expect, top 10 performance from Rashaad Penny, even if he's given the majority of the workload. I think, just not buying into the touchdowns, but looking forward and seeing that he might be a running back too on volume. But if you were able to pick him up before waivers, I think that was a good pickup.
I'm so salty about it. Like, Dave and I owned him probably on 90% of the leagues everywhere. And it just, Pete Carroll never played him. And then next thing you know, just this hodgepodge of running backs between Collins and then Homer's being played. So we, of course, add him to the drop list. And then lo and behold, here we are. Teams are locked. Can't re-add him in most of them. We still have him. I'm sure you're in that same boat. You probably dropped him a dozen times or more. But that's the frustrating part with Pete Carroll. It just seems like he's always a few weeks late to the party. And then here we are.
Yeah.
So I'm looking now, Bradley, you talked about, he's got the Rams. I mean, James Conner just gashed the Rams though. I mean, you're looking at that team and I feel like they're not the same team as they were in the beginning of the season. I think this last week against the Cardinals, they played better, but up until this last week, they've been very vulnerable, and not just on the ground, but through the air. And they haven't been as stout of a defense as we had seen early in the season. So I do think they can be attacked on the ground still. We just saw, Connor did most of his damage through the air, but I do think that I do think that Penny could still put up some good numbers against them if they continue to commit to him.
Well, yeah, he'll be like the goal line back, I think, and given majority of shares. So there's touchdown upside, but as you mentioned, James Conner caught all 9 of his targets against the Rams. That was going to be, he was a big part of the game plan, 94 receiving yards, but only 31 rushing yards on the ground on 13 carries. So if you're banking, you're not going to use Rashaad Penny, with PPR upside, in your mind. That's not his style of play this year.
Speaking PPR upside, KJ Osborne was finally unleashed here with Thielen being sidelined. What do you think, Nelson? KJ Osborne, a top 25 wide receiver moving forward with Thielen shelved?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the Discord chat at FTN, and I said that Osborne is that guy that my Fab article that I do every week. I mentioned that Osborne was that guy that he's not playable, and you have him on your bench, but you're like, okay, he's kind of a handcuff. If Jefferson or Thielen goes down,
boom.
he becomes a superstar. But otherwise, he's just kind of useless on your bench. So it becomes the question: do you just hold him and wait and see if there's an injury, or do you drop him and look to pick up another guy with bye weeks and everything? You need a guy to actually plug in your starting lineup. So Thielen injury happened. It looks like it's going to be, a few weeks before we get Thielen back. So I think Osborne now, he's a plug and play guy. I really do think that he's going to be solid.
We look at, there were several teams that we had this offseason that we had done that with, held him, right? And it really is like one of those rare scenarios where you handcuff a wide receiver just because the upside is so significant. There's not many teams out there that can produce 2 top 15 wide receivers or top 20 wide receivers on a week-to-week basis. Vikings being one of them, especially with their defense underperforming most of the season. They're having to throw the ball more as well. So for those who held on to KJ Osborne moving forward, I think he's going to be a top 25 play the rest of the playoff season.
Well, shout out to Vikings beat reporter Will Raggett. In the offseason, he came on this podcast, and I asked him, who's the wide receiver 3 behind Jefferson and Thielen? And he said, it's KJ Osborne. And Osborne had been, he had separated himself from the pack of, D.D. Westbrook and Emir Smith-Marset and the other ancillary pieces behind B.C. Johnson. And he's had a couple, blow-up games before, but now with this full-time role, as we mentioned, the Vikings are a lot more pass heavy, I think, than we anticipated. And you mentioned the defense underperforming. This leads to a lot more game scripts where they're going to be passing, and Osborne is going to be highlighted more. So I agree. He's a plug and play flex consideration.
Odell Beckham Jr. tested positive today for COVID. Van Jefferson has already been playing lights out. Is Van Jefferson a top 15 play moving forward, Nelson?
I think we got to wait till Friday or Saturday to find out if Beckham's going to be able to test negative and be cleared or not. So if you're asking today if Beckham is out, you got to play Van Jefferson at that point.
Would you say he's a top 15 wide receiver?
Top 15? That's pretty aggressive. I can probably think of 15 wide receivers that I would play over him. So I think that's a little bit aggressive, but I'd probably say top 25.
Bradley?
I think that's the right range that you're looking for. Van Jefferson seems to be what the Rams hoped, Deshaun Jackson could have brought, and a little more consistency in the deep ball. That seems to be his routes. He's getting free down the field. He's getting separation. And Matthew Stafford seems to be hitting him, whereas Cooper Kupp seems to be a lot more closer to the line of scrimmage. And to be consistently at that top 15, he has that ceiling for top 15, I think, for sure. But I don't think you can peg him as a median play of wide receiver 15. I agree. I'd take 15, 20 more wide receivers over him in a median play. But if you're playing for upside, if you are way outgunned or outnumbered, like Van Jefferson, I think is more of an upside play than maybe your safer. I don't know what's a safe wide receiver. I don't know why I thought of Tyler Lockett. He's like the most unsafe player.
Javonte.
A safe wide receiver, I would probably say, is like Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I would
PPR
probably
his body of work, like he's consistently getting 8 to 10 targets a game. Even though like it's close to the line of scrimmage, like he's like got a safe floor.
Or like Hunter Renfrow. I think that I would rather have, if I was completely like, if I was going to be outscored by, let's say 40 and I needed a big bomb play, probably Van Jefferson over Hunter Renfrow. But in most cases, I'd take Renfrow.
So Van Jefferson, do you want any guesses on what he is in wide receiver rankings from weeks 12, 13, and 14 combined?
Billy's going to come up with like wide receiver 14 or something like that.
It's even better.
12.
11.
Yep.
So, I mean, he has been a top 15 wide receiver for the last 3 weeks. He seems to be, and that's since the Bob Woods injury, right? And it seems to be a trusted target here for Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's a gunslinger. He likes to throw the ball deep. Van Jefferson has been, shown capable of the deep ball. I mean, I understand. I love the Waddle idea because the safe floor. But we're looking at this on the upside here, and I think Waddle's downfall is touchdowns, where Van Jefferson has been finding a knack for the end zone, where we're seeing him in the end zone now. What is that, 3 straight weeks?
Yeah, 3 straight weeks, 6 on the year. But he only caught 2 passes against Arizona for 58 yards. So I think that's the concern, is that he has, I think it's under a 50% catch rate, but
doesn't matter when they're all over. For 6, Bradley.
Fair enough. But he is getting the pass volume. So you can't ignore the targets. You can't ignore the touchdowns and his downfield threat with a yards per reception of almost 17. So there you go.
So Denver had 2 top 10 running backs this weekend. Yes, it was Detroit, but will it be the same old, or do these recent performances give us more confidence to higher ceilings for both Gordon and Williams, Nelson?
I think that's been the case all year long, is if the matchup is right, those guys are capable. They've been efficient with the touches that they're getting in a split committee. And I know a lot of people want that Javonte Williams, full bell cow workload, get rid of Melvin Gordon. But the fact of the matter is, like, Gordon looks good. Like, Gordon is performing. This is not a situation where it's like we're sitting here and asking ourselves, like, why is Pete Carroll running Adrian Peterson out there and Alex Collins? Like, Gordon's performing. He's doing well. So it's hard to really, how do you bench the guy and just say, we're going with the rookie?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon, running back 17 on the year right now in PPR leagues. Javonte Williams, running back 15 on the year in PPR leagues. So the Broncos have been, putting out two top 17 performances, all year with these running backs. I agree. They both have been very productive. In the high society too, Dave and I own both of these guys, and we were picking and choosing one every single week, and it just happened to be always the wrong one every single given week. Luckily we locked in the buy regardless. But I mean, those are the type of headaches that fantasy managers have, especially when you have both of them on your roster. I think it's the point now where you might just play both of them and see what happens on a week-to-week basis. And you may be playing them over other wide receiver names that maybe you like more than, the name Melvin Gordon at this stage in his career. But with how efficient they both have been and not knowing what the roles are going to be. I mean, they're both seeing red zone touches. They're both seeing passing work. They're both seeing short yardage work. We just don't know what they're going to do with these 2 backs at any given time. And both of them are good to score at any given game at any given time. So as frustrating it's been, they both have been very efficient and very fantasy productive.
And as a dynasty player, like I anticipate whatever happens with Melvin Gordon next year, he's going to be undervalued because either he stays in Denver and he keeps a similar role, and you don't imagine that the coaching staff, unless they change coaches, are going to change what they want to do with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, at least in a significant shift. But if he leaves, he probably isn't going to be a bell cow elsewhere. So he probably is going to be devalued, and so I think he's very much been under the radar, a running back that I wouldn't say league winner, but very much a value this year.
Tight end position. Brevin Jordan finally was a thing this week. Bradley was a week late on the call. Where do you rank Brevin Jordan in your tight end rankings moving forward, Nelson?
I like the kid. I think he's got potential. And he's playing a little bit more recently, but it's still the Texans. It's a terrible offense. They rotate all those tight ends. Who is it? Pharaoh Brown or whatever his name is, and they've got. I know Akins has been inactive, but they have this like big rotation of all these guys. So I don't know. Brevin Jordan's still not a name that I'm ready to like put in my starting lineup at this point, even though tight end's been kind of ass this year.
He's had 3 top 12 performances since being active in week 8. So 3 of his 6 weeks, he's been, a streamable tight end. And I know those are touchdown dependent, but he got 7 targets against Seattle. And you mentioned that Jordan Akins has been inactive, but he was comped as a better Jordan Akins coming out of the draft, playing the same type of role, a pass catcher, not really.
I think that's a positive thing.
Well, Jordan Akins was viewed as like an older pass catching capable tight end. And look, as bad as the tight end position is, Brevin Jordan has actually put up some interesting numbers.
So Bradley's beaten the table the last few weeks on Brevin Jordan, and I'm over here thinking Bradley's going a little crazy. I don't know what his love is with Brevin Jordan over here.
I mean, the number 3 ranked tight end ranker from week 14. What am I going to?
Yeah.
What am I going
to? I can't argue with it. I can't argue. I was definitely not top 3. That's for sure. My tight end rankings were. Nelson says the tight end position has been ass. My tight end rankings were ass. I was like 149th in tight end rankings. I'm so mad because I had Kittle at 1 and then Debo was active and I moved him down and then boom.
Well, if there's any reason to start Brevin Jordan, he gets Jacksonville next week. So,
hey, all right, maybe you might be onto something.
Yeah, I think he's on those magic mushrooms or something. I don't know, but we have
okay.
Hunter Renfro's been a top 12 wide receiver this season. Any reason that you think this changes, Nelson?
I think he just fits the offense. He's a good route runner. That's kind of Carr's MO. Waller's been hurt, so Renfro's kind of been the go-to guy. So I don't have any Renfro, so it's hard for me to really be excited about the guy, but there's no denying that, he's been performing at this point. So
were you like me and grabbing Bryan Edwards late in drafts, hoping it was Bryan?
Yeah. I was into Edwards and thought that finally this would be his breakout year, and it's just not going to happen.
Oh, it was Hunter Renfro. Correct answer.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders probably out. How high does my boy Gabe Davis rise for the week?
Yeah, I mean he's probably a little bit higher than where you would rank Sanders last week, for example, the last couple of weeks, because I do think he's got more upside than Sanders, has more juice, good around the red zone area for touchdowns. So that's probably where I would put him.
I'm so excited. That was my breakout candidate of the year. I had so much of them, and then Emmanuel Sanders was the thing, and I just got so disappointed and sad. It took Dave wanted to cut him like week 2, week 1, and I'm like, no, we cannot cut Gabe Davis. Like, I can't do it.
Billy went to the mat.
Like, I can't cut Gabe Davis. And then it's like week 4, Dave's looking at me like, we got to cut Gabe Davis. And I'm like, okay, we got to cut Gabe Davis. And then now here we are for all my best ball teams that are still in it, that have Gabe Davis. I'm excited, but probably most of them that have him didn't make it because it never became a thing. But Here we are. Top 3 pickups this week. Oh, sorry, Bradley, go ahead.
Yeah, he had a season high 8 targets, and I know it was against Tampa Bay, and it was a completely pass-centric offense. Like, the Bills didn't give a single rush to a running back in the first half. They're facing Carolina this week, and Carolina's also a tough defense, but you probably see a pass-centric offense as well, and Gabe Davis probably floating around a 20% target share. And with touchdown upside, he's a big-bodied receiver. So,
the Bills have a running back?
I mean, if you want to call Matt Breida a running back,
he should be the running back. Again, they won't commit. All right, and I know you said you're done with Fab, but for all of our Dynasty listeners out there who are now just starting playoffs, give me 3 pickups of the week. If you're a Dynasty player or you're just looking for a deep stash, someone that could be a difference maker down the stretch for playoffs, non-high stakes leagues.
Oh man, I was trying to check out of worrying about Fab and pickups. I don't know. The couple of guys that come to mind right now would be like Justin Jackson because of Eckler's injury. I know the coach said that he's fine, but he didn't look fine to me. I mean, they were taping up his ankle, and he looked kind of like a mummy. It was a lot of tape on that ankle. I don't know if you guys saw the video of it, but I was watching the game as they were doing it, and like I thought the trainer was gonna stop, and she just kept taping it, but he never came back in the game. So Jackson would be one. He's looked good to me, and then the other guy would be like Dearness Johnson. Take 3 now, I want to say, on the season. We had to take 1. We had to take 2, big game. And now Hunt looks like he's going to be out maybe 1 to 2 weeks. And you've got all these COVID cases going on, and you've got a couple of offensive players for the Browns. So he would be a kind of like a sneaky guy just to add and see how the week progresses there.
Love it. Bradley, how about you?
Well, got to shout out deep cut Craig Reynolds for the week. If Jamal Williams doesn't get activated off the COVID list and DeAndre Swift is shut down for the rest of the year, even though they won't say it, Craig Reynolds seemed pretty capable running for, I think it was like 86 yards.
Hey, what the fuck was that? I had an Igwabuki and Jefferson everywhere, and they want to freaking roll out Craig Reynolds. Like,
yeah,
I was so tilted.
He was a preseason darling and was running ahead of Igwabuke in the preseason, getting a lot of love, just stashed on the practice squad, stayed with them, and got his opportunity and ripped off a few good runs. So he's a possibility. It depends on how deep you're looking. In some leagues, the likes of Alan Lazard are still available. The likes of in my home league, Devontae Parker is still on waivers. So and Parker's so undervalued this year. He's had 7 targets or more in all but 1 game, and that was the game he just came back from his injury. So if you've got players like that who have been injured and out, but have had like large target shares, Sterling Shepard, for instance, gets Dallas, and that the New York Giants are going to play them tough, always interdivisional game, and Shepard usually commands the most targets, and Darius Toney's on the COVID list and dealing with an injury himself. So if players like that are flying under the radar are still under your waivers, smash that.
Nelson thought he was done with waivers, and then
just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
we pull him back into the waiver talk. All right,
so, Billy, how about you? How about some deep cuts?
Oh man, I haven't even given this. I was asking the question. I didn't even give this much thought here.
Loaded question.
Loaded question. You know, I'm gonna go to Jamison Crowder. Probably available in a lot of leagues. He might have been picked up last week with the news of Corey Davis. But I'm also, and that's another question. Who is the
and
Jets?
Then disappointing?
Yeah, and disappointing. Who's the Jets wide receiver to own moving forward? Anybody? Or is it just a no? Nelson's like, no.
It was Elijah Moore until he went on the injured reserve.
He was the guy, no doubt about it. He was the playmaker, and I mean, you guys know the stats with doing your rankings and everything, but I want to say like the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks, wasn't he like a top 15 wide receiver?
I'm pulling it up right now. I don't have it readily available. Wide receiver 14 from weeks 11 through 14. Yes.
Yeah, because
I mean, rank in there. Yeah.
Yeah. He was on a lot of my teams, and he was really helping me to make a playoff push.
Yeah, I initially had in the beginning of the year, I had a rookie of the year bet on him. It's like a $50 bet. I forget what the payout was, but I got to like week 5 and I was still allowed to bet it back. And I was only going to lose like $10. I'm like, I'm betting this back. Right. And so I took the $10 loss, got my $40 back. And then boom, the bye week hits week 6. He gets back and puts up 10 PPR points, 13 PPR points, 27 PPR points, 13 PPR points, 29.6 PPR points, 9.3 PPR points, 20.6 PPR points. And of course, what's the first thing I do is, son of a bitch, why'd I bet that back? But then I start looking at and like Mac Jones is playing lights out, and there's just no way that he's going to win.
Is Mac Jones even playing? Did he even play in the last game against Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, he played three.
He handed the ball off, right? I mean, if you count that.
But you look at, okay, real talk though, quarterbacks traditionally win Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah.
If they do well. If their team is doing well.
Even if they're mediocre, but if he makes playoffs, I guarantee he's Rookie of the Year.
All right, what's more likely, Belichick winning Coach of the Year or Mac Jones winning Rookie of the Year?
I think Mac Jones.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think Goodell is really, the NFL in general is a fan of Belichick. They don't want to give him any more awards. But I think he's done a great job when you consider it was basically like a 1-year rebuild.
Exactly.
And they're right back in contention again.
We their wide receiver core consists of Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne and
besmirch
Jacoby Myers.
Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver 1 the last 3.
No, it's true. It's amazing how they've been able to.
Jonnu Smith is busted.
Dollar for dollar, that was the best signing of the year. Kendrick Bourne, yeah. Yep. You look at what this team has done. We talked about this, I think it was last show with Josh Larkey, and we talked about the Patriots. And I mentioned the same thing. 1-year rebuild. It takes most franchises 10 years, if not, like look at the Lions. They've been rebuilding since day 1 and they've never made it. Right. Mm-hmm. And they have franchises out there that just can't figure it out. Patriots had one bad season after Brady leaves, and here they are back at the top of the AFC. Like, they make this game look easy, and it's really not. And here they are just, playing chess, and all these other teams are playing checkers year in and year out. As much as people hate the Patriots, you can't be angry. You have to respect what they do on an annual basis. And I can full-heartedly say that I respect how they operate and how they consistently are winning games.
Now, let me ask you guys this. If we fast forward to the Super Bowl, do you think a Patriots-Tampa Bay Super Bowl would be like one of the more exciting storyline Super Bowls in recent years?
Yes. It's already decided. It's probably going to happen. The NFL's rigged anyways. We know that.
Yeah. So. Like, I know there's fans out there like, Green Bay playing excellent football, Aaron Rodgers, like we could see them, Arizona, the Rams,
Last Dance,
absolutely. Cowboys, is a public team, America's team. So there's a lot of fans out there, but I don't know. Like, I think for a lot of the casual fans, if their team can't make it, I gotta think Brady versus Belichick, like rookie QB that replaced Brady.
Handing the torch.
Yeah, like in the Super Bowl, who's gonna beat who? Like, I would think that would be fascinating.
Oh, I think so too. And I hated Brady on the Patriots, and then ever since he left, I'm like rooting for the guy. I love him now. And it's like I think
He's
it's
become cooler, right?
yeah. He just like he's chill. He's drinking on boats now. He's eating nightshades now. Like he's not doing he's doing everything he wasn't doing now. Right? Like it's like
What was that drink
back.
that he had after the Super Bowl? Too many.
Oh, he said it was it avocado tequila?
Yeah, avocado tequila.
Yeah,
I
think
it's got to be
agree.
one of the most watched. You know, as you mentioned, the casual fans are going to tune in for that type of game, and Brady playing the best football of his career and an MVP type season. I mean, he'd be the oldest MVP winner if he wins it. And
what other exactly? So like, what other game like if you could pick matchups that the NFL would want for ratings? What other matchups can you think of that would people would tune in for?
Cowboys would be one of them just by the following.
Cowboys versus who?
It would have to be
Packers versus Browns. Let's go.
Packers Browns are done. Browns. No, I honestly
I know.
I can't think. I mean, the only other
Browns
team
were
that
off-season favorites for both Billy and myself, though.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I shit the bed on that one. That one sucked. Like I remember we were sitting at your dad's house drinking wine, and I was telling him about my Browns bets, and I thought they were going to take the next step forward. And he looks at me and starts laughing. He says, "You poor soul. You've never been a Browns fan. You'll learn never to give your heart to the Browns. They'll just break them." And so I remember I was like,
and then Billy was like, okay. And then he immediately pulls his bets off of the Oregon line. And it's just to be safe.
I can't think of any other games, Nelson. I think that is the best storyline. The only other team that has the most following would be Dallas that I can think of that even has a chance in the contention. But I mean, quite frankly, like it is the best storyline. It's coach first, past great quarterback, head to head, new young rookie quarterback, kind of the same MO, body type, Brady, right? Kind of the under radar quarterback, not round 6 under the radar, but you know what I'm saying.
And a clash of teams because the Tampa Bay offense is so good. And the New England defense has been what has kept them in games and was really a difference maker. If you remember last year, there were a dozen players on defense who opted out because of the COVID protocols. They just decided not to play, like Donta Hightower, So taking the defense, a strength versus strength, it wouldn't be like a shootout, I don't think.
Well, you look back, what they played once earlier in the year. What Tampa Bay won. Right. We had it was a very close contest.
It was wet and rainy.
It was wet and rainy. But if you got to think, if there's anyone that knows Brady better than anybody, it's Bill Belichick. And what is going to, how they can stop him, what makes him tick. Right. Those are the kind of things that give you the competitive edge in football. And even though, Tampa is this powerhouse, when you have those little competitive edges, every one of them adds up in the end.
Yeah.
Well, before we finish here, Nelson, I want you to give me 3 players that you think will be undervalued in 2022 and 3 players that you think are going to be overvalued in 22. And take your time because this question is randomly thrown at you. So take all the time in the world you need. I'm going to drink some wine. I'll stall for you. I'm going to look at players myself because I know I'm going to get asked the same question afterwards.
So overvalued and undervalued.
Yes, 3 and 3. I don't. If you only want to give me 2, that's fine. 2's fine too.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
I'll start with the first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first overvalued player, and I love what he's done for the season. I liked your take on him earlier, but I think Waddle is going to be priced out next year. I think he's going to be probably round 2, round 3 turn. And for me, I think that's going to be too expensive. I would much rather take somebody that's going to have a very similar upside, maybe a lower floor in rounds 5 or 6. But I think Waddle would be my first overvalued player in 2022.
Okay. Man, I haven't thought that far ahead.
I'm just going off the fly here. Eckler, I think is going to be. I'm not Eckler. Sorry, Christian McCaffrey. I think is going to be. This might cause a lot of debate too. So I think he's going to be undervalued. I think that people are going to be scared off. I think that they're going to look at say, hey, we've been burned 2 years in a row by injury. Number 1 pick. I could see his trajectory in ADP being something similar of Saquon Barkley this year, that round 1, round 2 turn, beginning of the year, kind of falling into the beginning of round 2 come 2022. And at that price, I think when he hits round 2, I think that is going to be a huge value for drafters, because you have potentially the number 1 running back in the league, if not the number 1 fantasy point scorer in the league at round 2 value. Yes, it comes with risk, but so did Mixon this year. So did Eckler. All those players came with injury concerns and injury risk. And I think that we could have a similar type of trajectory for ADP with Christian McCaffrey that we had with Saquon Barkley.
Okay. I'll give you an overvalued one. And this is just part of like my process when I set up like a fade list. I don't know if you know about it, but in the off season, I compile a list of players that I fade in drafts, and I don't draft them unless they become a value where I think they're going in the right spot. And then there's some guys that I just think that they're in a void. And one of my rules that I have is if a player is going in the top 4 rounds and was a free agent, a waiver wire pickup the year before, he's a fade.
So you faded James Robinson.
Yeah.
So Elijah Mitchell would be one.
There you go. And that's who I was going to name. And here's the thing. And people ask me this all the time. I like Elijah Mitchell today, right now. Yeah. I want him out of the concussion protocol, and I want him helping my fantasy teams win championships this year.
At price.
This year for $700, whatever I paid for him. Okay. But
you
next year, I know I did. But for next year, if he's going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, let's say like they cut Mostert, right? And Sermon's just not a thing. You know, Shanahan doesn't care for him, right? And Mitchell is the guy going into the season. I think there's the possibility that drafters are going to overvalue him, and he's going to get drafted in the top 4 rounds, and he's unfortunately going to be a guy that I'm just going to fade.
Ooh, I'm going to say top 3. I'd say he's going to go at that 2-3 turn probably. And I agree with you. I at that point I'm priced out. It was like Ayuk this year for me. Like I owned very little, hardly any Ayuk. I think I owned maybe 2 or 3 shares all season. And to me, it was number 1. I was a Debo truther. That was enough. But it primarily was like looking at his rookie season, looking at his statistics, and then saying, "Hey, this all happened because Debo was out. We had Kittle out. We had every running back out." And then when you have a player like that being drafted at round 4, round 5, right? When you have other players coming back in the lineup, you're drafting him at nearly peak value. And so I don't publish my fades list. I mean, I'll talk about it all the time on the podcast, but like Ayuk was like my biggest fade. Claypool was my biggest fade. These are the kind of players that I was looking at and just saying, you know, competition for targets. Haven't done, I mean, yes, Ayuk had a great rookie season, but outside that, a proven track record of success or dynamite ceiling, right? In order to be drafted inside that range, for me, it has to be proven, or at least have to have that type of upside on a week-to-week basis. And I just didn't see it with other player. There's too much inconsistency watching Claypool's tape, right? Not coming back to the ball. And we're seeing all those immaturities come fruition now here in 2021. You look at it and just constantly making these errors, and they're finally being brought to the surface. But these are things that he was doing last year as well, and they just were being overlooked because he was the wide receiver 3. But now, as the wide receiver 2, people are paying more attention to it. But yeah, I agree. I like the Mitchell pick, and everyone knows I'm a Niner fan, and I will not be taking Elijah Mitchell in round 2, 3, or even maybe the beginning of 4 next year.
I think an overvalued for me would be Jamar Chase. I love Chase. I think he's going to be overvalued.
That's a tough one, Bradley.
I know. I absolutely love Chase and love his talent. I love his upside, but he's shown the boom bust games, and I think that those boom games are just so tantalizing relative to what people are going to want to buy him for. So I think he's going to be too expensive. And on the flip side,
where do you think his ADP settles?
I was seeing things on Twitter like beginning of the second round, and I don't even think that I don't think that's a good price on him. Give me instead at whatever value you think AJ Brown is going to be. I think AJ Brown is one of those players who's going to be undervalued next year because he's going to be injury prone. He has an injury history. No, the dude's one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. And yeah, he's dealt with injuries, but when he steps onto the field, plays over. So, and Ryan Tannehill's locked into Tennessee. This was a lost season in some respects. The Titans lead the NFL in most players activated to the active roster by over 10 compared to the next highest. So for them, they've been dealing with injuries. And once AJ Brown comes back for next year, I think he'll be undervalued given that tag.
Nelson, would you buy Jamar Chase in drafts next year, round 2?
No, I wouldn't. I think if that's where he's going, I think he's going to be overvalued, and I'm probably not going to be interested.
Yeah, this is I'm curious on this one because he was going in some scenarios in round 4, on average round 5, started slipping to the tail end of round 6 when we realized that he couldn't catch striped balls or non-striped balls.
Had to practice catching tennis balls.
Yeah. So what was that? That was the kid from Little Giants. Remember that movie where they couldn't catch anything and they put all the stickum on his hands? It's like the 80s, 90s movie. I can't remember the name of it, but that's what it reminded me of. But I think round 2 for me. It's tough.
I was able to get him in round 10 of my home league this year.
You're drafting with donkeys. That's what that is. He was going around like 4 or 5, maybe 6 in late in FFPC drafts. And
it was the height of Jamar Chase panic, to be fair, but still, you don't fade him that far.
No, that's crazy.
I think another overvalued guy is going to be, even though he's having a down year, it's the name, and people always take him in the first couple of rounds, is Travis Kelce.
I was hoping you would say DeAndre Hopkins, because that's who I would say.
Hopkins is, he's showing signs of possibly breaking down here. He's dealing with some injuries the last couple of years, but Kelce's the other guy that, if you look at it, if you had to guess, I'm sure you guys are pretty sharp, so you guys probably know how old Kelce is. But I think if you asked most people, they would be shocked.
He's like 31, isn't he?
32.
Yeah, I knew he was old.
He's going to be 33 this year, yeah.
Yeah. People would be shocked by that. And I just think that he's starting to show his age, that he's falling off a little bit. And he's one of those guys that I don't get the fascination. Like, I wasn't on him last year, and he had a monster season, but I wasn't on him again this year. Like, I'd rather be a year early than a year late on some of these players.
I always say never chase fantasy points, right? You're always wanting to try to catch the next value. Like, you're trying to catch those Debos. You're trying to catch and it wasn't necessarily a hit, but the Marvin Jones is going in around 15 in FFPC drafts, right? Like, you're wanting to catch those late round wide receivers, late round running backs that are going to severely outperform ADP. That's how you win championships, and that's how you win games. Well, Nelson, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell everybody where to find you, where to find your work, plug all your details.
At FTN Fantasy. That's where I'm at. I got the coaching package for next year, but not just myself, but we have like an all-star crew there when it comes to DFS, sports betting, season long, you name it. We've got some superstars. A lot of our subscribers are winning money this year. So, that's I think we're an up and coming fantasy company, if not already there, but we have a lot of guys that work hard at it.
Well, thanks for joining us. We will be back Friday with our rankings show, and we're going to have Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros join us, and we're going to be doing our top 10 rankings per position. So it'll be as we head into our final weeks here for our playoffs and for any last minute if you're playing DFS. It's a huge help as well, especially when you have someone like Bradley over here finishing in the top 2. If you would have followed, you probably would have got you a ton of money with his hits. So
Brevin Jordan going to to be top 6 this week.
Are you calling it?
I haven't finalized my rankings yet.
I'm calling it.
Nelson called it.
I love it.
Oh man, I can't get on board with Brevin Jordan. I'm gonna take a look at it. When you look at my tight end rankings, I can't speak. I can't say anything against it. I look at my tight end rankings, and my tight end rankings are
there, Billy.
Those are my tight end rankings. Oh, you want the all aboard for Brevin Jordan?
Yeah, all aboard. Nelson knows. He's joined the train. All right, fantastic.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you all back here on Friday. Have a good night.
Everybody.